Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up in Hello Open Metaverse, brought to you by Animoca Brands. This week, we're featuring Mohamed Ezeldin. Mo heads up the Tokenomics team at Animoca Brands, a leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and gamification that is working to advance digital property rights and contribute to the establishment of the open metaverse. Today, he's joined by influencer, metaverse, and Web3 pioneer Roberto Nickson. Now, Roberto is the founder of Metaverse with the second E being a number 3, and co-founder of the MV3 Universe. Today, we're chatting all about making money in the metaverse and what businesses should be focusing on. Now, Statista's Advertising and Media Markets Insight estimates that worldwide metaverse revenue will stand at $490 billion in the year 2030. In my opinion, this is actually a conservative forecast. Now, for the Statista Outlook, the term metaverse is defined as a virtual world or a collection of virtual worlds that exist in a common digital space and that users can access over the internet. Metaverses include applications of virtual reality, augmented reality, and other immersive technologies. The biggest revenue drivers for metaverses are e-commerce and gaming. Now, metaverse e-commerce sales alone could grow to more than $200 billion by the year 2030 from currently just around $20 billion. That's a huge leap. And gaming is expected to grow even more from just around $10 billion as of now to around, are you ready, $163 billion by the year 2030. Now, even financial services firm BlackRock was recently quoted saying it thinks that there are very serious opportunities for investors to get into the metaverse and start making money. Here to chat Web3, metaverse, and investments are my experts at hand, Mohamed Ezeldin and Roberto Nickson. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Great to be here again. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, Roberto, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So let's dive right in. So I'm going to start with you. So BlackRock's technology equity team recently published a note saying that at this juncture, it is much like the internet of the early 1990s or the smartphone of the early 2000s. We expect it is going to be big and very likely change people's daily lives, but we don't yet know exactly how or how big the shift will be. They are talking about the metaverse. What do you say to this, and should investors be interested?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, when I think of metaverse, I just look at the behavior of the under 15, under 16 crowd, and they're spending their entire lives on Roblox, on Minecraft, on Fortnite, et cetera. And while these aren't like quote unquote metaverse experiences that live on a decentralized blockchain, it's very much indicative of what the behavior of the future is going to be like. When I also think of metaverse, I just understand that the reach and scale of digital cannot be replicated in physical. And so these two things combined with the further development of blockchain and Web3 technologies, I just think it's obvious. I just do believe that it's going to take 5 to 7 years to get there, just because of the throughput of some of these blockchains aren't quite there. But I definitely think, when I look at Chipotle, who just they went into Roblox and they did an activation on free burritos and 30 million people showed up. That's never going to happen in the physical realm. So the metaverse is very, very much a lucrative endeavor to kind of look at for a lot of businesses, brands, and individuals. It just may take 2 or 3 years for it to manifest in the way that we all kind of think that it will.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you said it. And the biggest investment opportunity per BlackRock, and they kind of have a gauge in the industry, is going to be in companies that can provide consumers and other companies with quality hardware for accessing the metaverse, namely AR glasses. I mean, producing AR glasses that are wearable, fashionable, and metaverse functional will require a new generation of chips, batteries, and lenses, of course. And the companies that will build out the actual metaverse also figure to be good investment opportunities per BlackRock. So we're definitely seeing that shift. Mo, let's chat how 5G is going to benefit from the metaverse. So for some reference, for those of you listening and watching, 5G is the 5th generation technology standard for broadband cellular networks, which cellular phone companies began deploying worldwide back in 2019. And it is the planned successor to the 4G networks, which provide connectivity to most current cell phones. Now, that being said, More than $100 billion has been spent on 5G airwaves and network upgrades by mobile carriers alone. And despite 5G being a hot topic of conversation, there have actually been very few use cases of 5G making money so far. Now, the metaverse will change this. Rather than the metaverse benefiting from the capabilities of 5G, as many predict, 5G will benefit from the metaverse. What do you say to this? And what are your thoughts?
I think it's a very strong case. I mean, as of now, in most countries, 3G is still the highest level of access you can have to the internet, and it works. So, do we need 5G as of today? Most people don't. But what's super interesting, and I guess the examples always help, we look at the release of Pokemon Go a number of years back, and I think it was 18 million daily active users at launch. And over time, that receded to about 30 million users within the first few months. But what they did to reactivate their community was actually having physical activations in real life, where if you're playing Pokemon Go, come to this physical activation and you're rewarded with different assets in game. So from the metaverse perspective, and I'll come back to the 5G comment in a moment, from the metaverse perspective, yes, it's online, but I do feel with the rise in AR technology as well, it's going to be a mix between IRL, so in real life, and online. And that's the power of what AR will give us. Linking that into 5G, especially when we have large amounts of people in a single area, mobile connection tends to be pretty poor. How many times have you been at a football game or a hockey game and you're in a stadium with tens of thousands of other fans, and all of a sudden I don't have connection? I have full bars, but I'm unable to send my WhatsApp. My video isn't uploading to Instagram. I'm not going to get the likes that I need. So we're starting to see some issues around that, and definitely 5G will begin to solve that.
I love it. I'm not going to get the likes that I need. That's the only thing that stood out in that whole last paragraph. Because can you imagine being at a stadium and wanting to capture that moment in time, and you have social media followers and you can't post? Oh my goodness. All right, Roberto, let's go back to you. So let's chat the metaverse for the sales process. So a few years back, you may not have imagined a world where most of your sales calls were taken remotely on platforms like Zoom. So the question is, how might the metaverse change our interactions with potential customers? Now, the metaverse will help, of course, reduce the amount of business travel needed, even more so than the use of Zoom has. I mean, instead of taking an airplane to meet with a prospect or getting on a video chat, we can log on to a virtual roundtable with VR goggles in the metaverse to provide a more interactive virtual experience. So the metaverse can definitely create a more and more realistic virtual setting for meetings for the sales process. Now, you touched on your predictions for how long this will take to come to mass adoption. So I'm curious to always know is, in your opinion, should companies be focusing on the metaverse sales process right now? And what needs to transpire between then and now for metaverse mass adoption?
It's a great question. And I think that companies definitely need to be paying attention, because what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 years is there's going to be exponential growth in the sector, meaning that Reality Pro, Apple's Reality Pro headset, is just around the corner. It's going to be launched this year in June at WWDC. And the form factor, although we haven't seen it, is being rumored to be a lot more ergonomic, because the battery pack actually lives in your pocket. And so the device is a lot easier to put on and off, which has been like one of the pain points in some of the devices that we've had until now. And what's just been released today, this morning actually, is Facebook, Meta, announced their roadmap on some of the hardware. By 2027, they're going to have AR glasses, very, very simple, elegant form factor that you could just put on and off. And then Apple has rumored to have patents for 2035, mid 2030s, that they're going to be in the contact lens, as small as a contact lens.
Wow.
So yeah, these technologies, the form factor is going to be really, really reduced. All that friction is going to be gone. They're going to be perfectly ergonomic, and having meetings, so-called face-to-face meetings inside of the metaverse just adds a lot more context. So instead of having voice, you're actually having mannerisms and body language. And, one of the cool things, I tried Zuck's sort of metaverse out. When I turn left to the person, that I'm interfacing with, I can actually, I'm turning left and I'm seeing them, they're turning to look at me. It's a lot more intimate, and it just adds a lot more context to these meetings, which helps to close sales, which helps to, drive business. And so I just think that's why my timeline is 2 or 3 years, but I do think that companies need to be paying attention right now, because it's coming.
Wow. Fascinating stuff what's happening here. Okay, 3 minutes left right here. Mo, let's let's shift here to a couple of stats in the media. So Goldman Sachs estimates the metaverse's economy could hit trillion in 20 years from now. And fashion brands have been very busy experimenting, eager to hunt down the younger consumers that we've been talking about. I mean, even luxury houses have been trying to find a foothold in this curious new world. So in fear of missing out, FOMO, as in the years of e-commerce, brands are now, hoping that consumers are going to want to engage. And once consumers own the virtual product, they'll be more likely to buy the real version when they have more cash. Now, this is a gateway to building that relationship with the consumer that we've been talking about. We have Balenciaga, Prada, and Thon Brown are among other designers offering, of course, outfits for metaverse avatars for just under $10 a pop. So essentially, tokenomics at its best, really. Is this a viable process, and will it actually convert to monetization over the Gen Alpha and Gen Z demographics? I mean, I assume that is their target audience. What are your thoughts, Mo?
100%, absolutely. And I think it's a great point. Something we don't speak enough about are royalties. And what blockchain and decentralization allow us to do is to track royalties, to make sure that Balenciaga, if the example of a $10 NFT, if they're able to sell 100,000 of these NFTs, they've just generated $1 million worth of revenue. And then for any secondary sales that happen after that, they're still generating income from that perspective. And then if we flip it around from a consumer standpoint, especially with the rise in all of these metaverses that are leveraging blockchain technology, we need content creators to be building this content. And we talk about, especially in the US, the number of young children growing up saying, I want to be an influencer when I'm older. Well, they need a community to be influencing, and they also need content to be able to leverage that, to have the influence. So with that in mind, it's not just a top-down change. We're going to see a bottom-up change as well. We have content creators coming in. We spoke about the metaverse being online and also being in real life. Well, what if I'm able to wear that dress or those pair of shoes on my avatar and have that interoperable? So being able to take it from one digital world into another digital world. I think there are so many new business cases. We're only starting to scratch the surface on the different types of revenue models that can be generated from this. So when we say, was it 8 trillion? I think we're just scratching the surface, because once this takes off, I don't think you can't get the cat back in the bag.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, you're 100% right in scratching the surface. And more importantly, I say, the only fear you should have of the metaverse is not becoming part of it, because you're going to be missing out. I mean, it's all Web 1 and Web 2. We're done with that. Well, listen, guys, it was very enlightening chatting with you. I want to thank you for spending the time with me here on our #1 education segment for trending and edutainment right here on Metaverse Talk. Mo, always a pleasure. Roberto, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all very much. And Mo, you need your own radio show, because that voice is soothing.
So soothing.
Coming to a station near you.
Oh, there you go. Okay, don't move a muscle. Guys, listen, the viability of the metaverse. Wow, really, really. Too often we tend to be overly aggressive in our short-term view of how things will change and under-aggressive in our long-term view. Now, over the next 1 to 3 years, we will likely see a slower adoption of the metaverse, like Roberto said. But in the long term, we will see wider, more rapid adoption driven by a desire for more real-time virtualized experiences, like Mohamed said. Obviously, getting to a world where the metaverse is more ubiquitous will require continued investment in infrastructure. That was our Hello Open Metaverse segment, brought to you by Animoca Brands. Do check them out. That was Mohamed Ezeldin, head of Tokenomics, and that was Roberto Nickson, influencer, metaverse, and Web3 pioneer. Definitely head to his Instagram. You can check him out at his handle, RP Nickson. He's the founder of Metaverse. And when you Google Metaverse, it's Metaverse with the second E being a number 3. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Hello Open Metaverse. We're talking with influencer, Web3 pioneer, Roberto Nickson, and head of tokenomics at Animoca Brands, Mohamed Ezeldin. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Nice to see you again,
Great
Zen.
to be back.
Okay, so this is our extended segment. Now, both of you will answer this question. I'm going to start with you first, Roberto. So metaverse gaming and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, could constitute 10% of the luxury goods market by the year 2030. And this is according to a 2021 report by JP Morgan. This would represent a $50 billion revenue opportunity and a 25% increase in the market's overall profits. And while many image-conscious companies remain cautious about the opportunities of Web3, some are literally taking the very big plunge. But it's not all upside for luxury brands. Many have legitimate concerns about intellectual property, compliance issues, and brand safety. Now, some of these dangers have already been illustrated by NFTs. Last summer, Tiffany & Company gave owners of a CryptoPunk NFT access to a sale of custom necklaces. Now, these NFTs were sold for 30 Ether each. That's about $50,000 at the time. And owners also received a physical pendant encrusted with diamonds and made in the image of the corresponding pixelated CryptoPunk characters. Now, the collection sold out in under half an hour and was estimated to have made the jeweler more than $12 million. Today, the lowest resale price of an NFT is now around 9 Ether. That's around 13K, meaning value didn't hold. And likely the value of the physical diamond-studded pendant has actually held up considerably better. What do you say to this, especially from an investor standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things there to unpack. One with blockchain is that it's a very sound technology. Like the technology is sound. I think it's world changing, and it's profound. And these companies are going to be able to verify their products now on chain, which I think is really, really important. What happened with Tiffany's in essence is this: like there are a lot of people who are turned off by the space because of the speculative nature of it, and there has been somewhat of a casino that has been built on top of blockchain that's been a part of Web3. And so understandably, a lot of the mainstream have been turned off by that because it is highly, highly speculative, right? So while the technology is sound and it works, the speculative nature on top of it, which is, by the way, just psychology, it's, collector's mindset, it's provenance, it's, like cultural relevancy, like all of these things come into play. And sometimes there's momentum there, sometimes there isn't. So in that particular instance, I understood what Tiffany was doing. And I just think the speculative nature kind of, deflated sort of the attention around it, if you will.
Yeah, listen, I always say luxury people should understand NFTs and digital ownership better than anyone. I mean, after all, nobody buys a luxury watch to tell the time, right?
Right.
So you buy it because you appreciate the aesthetics, the craft, you think it might have some resale value, and it gives you status. It makes you part of a small group of people that appreciate the same things. Totally get that. And that's actually where I'm headed with this. Now, Mohamed, I want your opinion on this because from an investment perspective, people are saying, well, hold up over here. You have Tiffany launching the NFTs. They were sold for 30 Ether. And at the time, they were equivalent to $50,000. And now owners are saying, wait a minute, they didn't hold their value. What do you say to this?
I think it's super interesting because what owners paid for wasn't one product, but two products. It was the NFT, but also it was the physical, was it the necklace? It was a bracelet.
Yes, it was the physical diamond-studded pendant, right?
Absolutely. So within that, the diamonds themselves, they have held value, but there's been a decoupling between the NFT and the physical merch as well. And a big part of that is we were not seeing use cases where I can actually wear my pendant in the metaverse. And that's, for me, that's one of the big reasons for it, in addition to everything that Roberto has spoken about earlier. I believe as these metaverses get built out, and we often forget that we're still quite early with where the technology is at, and we said a 5 to 7 year time frame. I'm in agreement. I do think that's when the word metaverse it will be a lot more prominent, especially with the younger generations. The technology will be then, and we'll be able to leverage NFTs, any new variations of NF, whatever we want to add to the end there. And then we'll see the true value, because now I can wear that on my avatar and there's only one of 50 of these, and naturally value will come back. And the other side of it, we're saying it's 9 ETH. Or was this 9 ETH, it's 13K. That's because the value of ETH has gone down considerably. It's about a third of the price of what it was at the time of when the sale was made. So we have a double nature. Yeah, there's two reasons why the value has gone down. The market in general has receded and lost value. And the other side of it, that we haven't seen many utilities or use cases for me to leverage this NFT in the metaverse style.
So with mass adoption, we're going to start to see an increase in value. Of course, the way it works in every industry, it's all about supply and demand. And when the demand starts to increase and these supplies become much more limited, they become much more valuable. And of course, we're going to start to see that trickle in, to Roberto's point, not maybe tomorrow or the next day or even at the end of this year, but in a few years from now. And then really, if you look at 5 to 7 years from now, headed into 2030, that's when I really think we're going to start to see the biggest boom of all. So to both your points, you should be getting in now, being ahead of the curve, buying property in the metaverse now that it's affordable, because if you wait much longer, you're going to get to the game a little bit too late, right?
Yeah, I mean, something to say there. I mean, both you guys made incredible points. Then you made the point that people are buying status. I mean, Bernard Arnault's the second richest person in the world. He sells status. He's not selling handbags. He's not selling watches. He's selling status. And so very much so, as our lives become more digital, so will our status symbols. And the most profitable media entertainment ventures today are free-to-play games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, etc., that just sell cosmetic skins for people to be able to communicate who they are within these games, to communicate their status within these communities. So that is going to come to the metaverse right now. To Mohamed's point, like the great point that he made is that there isn't really a metaverse right now that's hit that critical mass. Some of these early ones that are such, they're obvious glimpses into the future, like Decentraland and Sandbox, unfortunately, as of now, they're a bit of ghost towns. Yeah. So I don't know that I could recommend like buying land in these necessarily, because who knows what metaverses are going to become the quote unquote winning ones. It's so early to tell that it's very highly speculative. But to your grand, sort of your macro point, yes, eventually there will be these winning metaverses where this land is going to be so valuable, because like physical land, they're central, they're well located, there's a lot of eyeballs on them. People can think of them as digital ad space in essence, like immersive digital ad space. Like instead of buying something on the front page of CNN, you could buy a metaverse activation, a piece of land where millions of eyeballs are going to be traversing and having their eyes on. I think that's really valuable.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Look at iHeart just launched iHeartland in the metaverse in the Sandbox, and State Farm has the biggest banner that you could find right up there, right? So again, yeah, we're starting to see this. Maybe they're really, really ahead of the game, because it's not everybody doing this. But yes, to your point, that's where we're headed. Digital ad space is the thing, especially when you look at the generation that's dwelling in the metaverse, which is the Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and from the Academy Awards to fintech to blockchain apps to organizations, everybody wants Gen Z and Gen Alpha at the core of their community. Why? Because they live on their devices, and that connectivity, that constant obsessive connectivity that I think is slightly unhealthy, is what that capture by big brands is, the big fish. So yeah, it's all part and parcel. Well, that said, we are out of time, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Mohamed, always a pleasure. Roberto, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, Zen.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Guys, that was our Hello Open Metaverse segment, brought to you by Animoca Brands. That was Mohamed Ezeldin, head of Tokenimocs at Animoca. And that was Roberto Nickson, influencer, Metaverse, and Web3 pioneer, founder of Metaverse with the number 3 in the second position of the E, and founder of the MV3 Universe. You can check him out on the gram at RPN Nickson, RP Nickson. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.